You have been bleeding quietly. Not from a wound anyone can see, but from the exhausting, invisible, never-ending effort of trying to fix people who never asked to be fixed. And the most painful part? You called it love. Let me ask you something honest. Think about the people in your life who drain you the most. The ones who leave you feeling hollow after every conversation. The ones you lie awake thinking about at 2 a.m., running scenarios in your head, planning what you'll say next time, strategizing how to finally get through to them. Now ask yourself this. Did any of them ask for your help? Not your presence. Not your companionship. Not your love. Your fixing. Did they sit down across from you, look you in the eye, and say, I am broken. I need you to repair me. I am placing myself in your hands and I trust you to put me back together. In most cases, if you are honest, the answer is no. They didn't ask. You just saw something that needed fixing. And because you are the kind of person who cares, deeply, genuinely, sometimes overwhelmingly, you picked up your tools and you got to work. And you have been working ever since. Getting nowhere. Growing more exhausted with every attempt. Wondering why the harder you try, the worse things seem to get. Welcome to one of the most important conversations we have ever had on the Stoic path. Because today we are going to talk about something that nobody wants to admit, that the compulsion to fix the people around you is not always a virtue. Sometimes it is a wound wearing the costume of one. Stay with me. The fixer's portrait. Let me describe someone to you. This person is warm. Empathetic to a degree that sometimes feels like a superpower and sometimes feels like a curse. They notice things, the slight change in someone's tone, the tension behind a smile, the unspoken weight a person is carrying before that person has said a single word. They are the person people call at midnight. The one everyone brings their problems to. The one who somehow always has something to offer, a perspective, a solution, a way through the darkness. They are generous with their time, their energy, their emotional bandwidth. And they are running on empty. Because here is what nobody tells the fixer. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And more than that, more devastatingly than that. Most of the cups you are pouring into have holes in the bottom. You pour. And pour. And pour. And the next morning, the cup is empty again. Not because you didn't pour enough. But because the cup, the person, is not yet ready, or not yet willing, to hold what you are giving them. Does this sound familiar? If it does, I need you to stay with every word of what comes next. Because what I am about to say is going to challenge something that may feel like a core part of who you are. And it needs to be challenged. The sculptor and the stone. There was once a sculptor of extraordinary talent. He could look at a block of raw stone and see, already living inside it, the figure waiting to be released. His hands were skilled. His vision was clear. His patience was legendary. One day, a colleague brought him a piece of stone and said, "There is something beautiful in here." "I know it. Can you find it?" The sculptor examined the stone carefully. He tapped it. Studied it. Ran his hands along its surface. And then he set it down. "This stone," he said quietly, "is not ready." His colleague frowned. "What do you mean, not ready?" "Stone is stone." The sculptor shook his head. "Every material has a moment," he said. "A moment when it is receptive. When it will yield to the chisel without shattering. When the work done to it will hold its shape. This stone has fractures running through it that I cannot see but I can feel. If I work on it now, with the best tools, the best intentions, the fullest effort of my skill, it will crack. Not because my work is wrong. But because the stone is not ready to receive it. So what do we do?" His colleague asked. "We wait," the sculptor said simply. "And in the meantime, I work on the stones that are ready." I want you to sit with that story for a moment. Because the people in your life, the ones you are exhausting yourself trying to fix, they are not always bad stones. They are not always hopeless. They are not always destined to remain broken. But they may not be ready. And all the skill, all the love, all the desperate, devoted effort you pour into an unready stone will crack it further, not heal it. Why we try to fix people, the real reason. Now here is where we go somewhere most conversations about this topic are afraid to go. Because when I say, stop trying to fix people, the immediate, defensive response is always the same. But I care about them. That's why I do it. It's love. And I believe you. I genuinely believe that love is present. But I want to ask you something that love sometimes makes it hard to ask yourself. Is fixing them entirely about them? Or is some part of it, a significant part, about you? About the discomfort you feel when someone you love is struggling and you cannot control the outcome? About the anxiety that lives in you when things around you are disordered and you cannot impose order on them? About the identity you have built around being the capable one, the strong one, the one who always has the answer, and what it would mean for that identity if you admitted that some problems are simply not yours to solve. The great Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, who spent his career excavating the hidden architecture of human motivation, said something that the Stoics would have recognized immediately: everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The compulsion to fix is rarely purely selfless. Underneath it, almost always, is a fixer who is themselves unresolved. Unhealed. Running from something. Using other people's problems as a way to avoid sitting with their own. This is not an accusation. This is an invitation to radical honesty. Because the moment you understand why you fix, truly understand it, down to the root, is the moment you gain the power. Elena and her brother. There was a woman named Elena who had a younger brother named Marcus. Marcus had been making the same mistakes for 15 years. Different circumstances, different faces, different details, but always the same essential story. He would build something, sabotage it. Get close to something good, pull away from it. Take one step forward and two steps back with a consistency that was almost mathematical. And Elena, who loved Marcus with a ferocity that could have moved mountains, had spent 15 years trying to fix him. She had given him money. She had given him advice. She had given him opportunities, connections, conversations at midnight, patience that bordered on sainthood, and more second chances than either of them could count. And Marcus had remained, fundamentally, unchanged. One evening, Elena sat with a mentor she deeply respected, an older woman who had lived through enough to see clearly. Elena laid out the whole story. Every attempt. Every failure. Every ounce of herself she had poured into her brother's life. When she finished, the older woman was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Elena. Who gave you the assignment?" Elena blinked. "What? Who gave you the assignment of fixing Marcus? Did God appoint you? Did Marcus appoint you? Or did you appoint yourself?" The question landed like a stone dropped into still water. Elena had no answer. Because the truth, the quiet, uncomfortable, liberating truth, was that she had appointed herself. Out of love, yes. Out of genuine care, yes. But also out of fear. Fear of watching someone she loved destroy himself. Fear of what it said about her if she stopped trying. Fear of the helplessness that lives on the other side of acceptance. She had been fixing Marcus to manage her own fear. And Marcus, unconsciously, unknowingly, had been allowing it. Because as long as Elena was fixing, Marcus didn't have to face the full weight of his own choices. Her rescuing had become his permission. Her love had become his excuse. The Stoic perspective: what is yours to carry? The Stoics had a framework for this that is, in my view, one of the most practically useful ideas in the history of human philosophy. Epictetus, who again, began his life as a slave and built a philosophy of extraordinary freedom from that position, taught what he called the dichotomy of control. Some things are within our control. Our thoughts, our choices, our responses, our effort, our character. Some things are not within our control. Other people's choices. Other people's growth. Other people's readiness to change. Other people's willingness to see what we see, feel what we feel, and move in the direction we believe is right for them. The wisdom, the entire project of Stoic living, lies in learning to distinguish clearly between the two. And then, and this is the part that costs something, releasing your grip on the things that are not yours to control. Not with indifference. Not with coldness. Not with the kind of emotional detachment that is really just fear wearing a philosophical mask. But with the genuine, grounded, compassionate understanding that you cannot want someone's growth more than they want it for themselves. You simply cannot. And trying to, pouring yourself into that impossible project, does not help them. It exhausts you. It enables them. And it robs both of you of the authentic relationship that could exist if you stopped performing the role of rescuer and started showing up as an equal. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, wrote in his private journals with a humility that is almost startling. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The outside events include the people around you. Their choices. Their timelines. Their readiness to change. Those are not yours. Your mind is yours. Your response is yours. Your boundaries are yours. Your energy, precious, finite, irreplaceable, is yours. Spend it accordingly. The cost nobody talks about. I want to name something that almost never gets named in these conversations. The cost of chronic fixing is not just exhaustion. It is identity erosion. When you spend years organizing your time, your emotional energy, your sense of purpose around the project of fixing someone else, you gradually, quietly, lose the thread back to yourself. Your own dreams get postponed. Your own healing gets deprioritized. Your own needs become something you deal with later, always later, after you've handled this crisis, helped this person, solved this problem. And later never comes. Because there is always another crisis. Always another person who needs you. Always another fire burning in someone else's life that you have convinced yourself only you can put out. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps and built an entire psychological framework from that experience, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that the deepest human drive is not pleasure or power. It is meaning. And meaning, genuine, sustaining, soul-level meaning, cannot be built entirely on someone else's story. You need your own. We have looked honestly at the real reasons we try to fix people, and found something more complex than pure altruism. We have heard the sculptor's wisdom about unready stone. We have sat with Elena and her brother and felt the quiet devastation of a love that had become an enabling. And we have brought the full weight of Stoic philosophy to bear on one of the most human of all struggles, the struggle to accept that other people's journeys are not ours. There is a kind of peace that comes over a person the moment they stop fighting a battle they were never meant to fight. Not the quiet of defeat. Not the quiet of giving up. The quiet of clarity. The moment you put down the tools you were never supposed to be carrying, and feel, perhaps for the first time in years, the full weight of what they were costing you. That peace is where part 2 begins. Because stopping the fixing is not the destination. It is the doorway. And what lives on the other side of that doorway is what we are here to talk about today. The difference between loving and rescuing. Before we go further, I need to draw a line. A clear, honest, important line. Because when I say, stop trying to fix people, I am not saying stop caring. I am not saying become cold. I am not saying build walls so high that nothing and no one can reach you. That is not wisdom. That is just a different kind of wound. What I am saying is this. There is a profound difference between loving someone and rescuing them. And most fixers have never learned to tell the two apart. Let me show you what each one looks like. Rescuing says, I cannot bear to watch you struggle, so I will remove the struggle for you. Loving says, I can bear to watch you struggle, because I trust that the struggle is part of what will make you. Rescuing says, your pain makes me uncomfortable, so I will fix it to make myself feel better. Loving says, your pain is yours to move through, and I will be here on the other side of it. Rescuing says, I know what is best for you better than you do. Loving says, I believe in your capacity to figure out what is best for you, and I will not rob you of that discovery by doing it for you. Do you feel the difference? One is about the rescuer. The other is about the person being loved. One removes agency. The other honors it. One exhausts the giver and infantilizes the receiver. The other empowers both. And here is the hardest truth of all, the one that will sit with you long after this video ends. Every time you rescue someone from a consequence they needed to feel, you steal from them. You steal the lesson. The growth. The self-knowledge that only comes from falling and getting back up without someone catching you before you hit the ground. Your rescue, however loving its intention, is a theft. Real love lets people fall sometimes. Real love trusts the fall. The butterfly and the cocoon. There is a story, simple, old, and more devastating than it first appears, about a man who found a butterfly cocoon. He watched it for a long time. And one day, a small opening appeared. The butterfly was struggling to force its body through that tiny hole. Straining. Pushing. Working with everything it had. The man watched and felt something unbearable rise in his chest. Compassion. He could not stand to watch the butterfly suffer. So he took a pair of scissors, gently, carefully, with the purest of intentions, and he snipped open the cocoon. The butterfly emerged easily. But its body was swollen. Its wings were small, shriveled, undeveloped. And it spent the rest of its short life crawling on the ground, unable to fly. What the man did not know, what his compassion prevented him from understanding, was that the struggle was the point. The pressure of forcing itself through that narrow opening was what pushed the fluid from the butterfly's body into its wings. The struggle was not cruelty. The struggle was design. Without the struggle, no wings. Without the wings, no flight. And the man, with his scissors and his compassion and his absolute certainty that he was helping, had produced, with the best intentions imaginable, a creature that would never become what it was made to be. I want you to hear this in the context of your own life. The people you are cutting the cocoon open for. Are they flying? Or are they crawling? And is it possible, is it even remotely possible, that your help, your rescue, your fixing, is the very thing keeping them on the ground? What to do instead, the 4 shifts. So if rescuing is the wrong move, what is the right one? I want to give you something practical here. 4 shifts. Not abstract philosophy, real, applicable changes in how you show up for the people in your life. Shift 1, move from advice to presence. Most fixers, when someone they love is struggling, immediately go to advice mode. Here is what you should do. Here is what I would do. Here is the solution I have already worked out in my head on your behalf. But most people who are struggling are not primarily asking for solutions. They are asking to be seen. There is an enormous difference between being heard and being fixed. Between someone sitting with you in the dark and someone immediately trying to turn the lights on before your eyes have adjusted. The next time someone you love comes to you with a problem, try something different. Before you reach for your toolkit, ask one simple question. Do you want me to help you think through this, or do you just need me to listen? That question is revolutionary. Because it hands the agency back to the person who was never supposed to lose it in the first place. And 9 times out of 10, you will discover that what they needed was never your solution. It was your presence. Shift 2, move from changing to accepting. This is the shift that costs the most emotionally. Because it requires you to look at someone you love, with all their patterns, their blind spots, their repeated mistakes, their apparent determination to remain exactly as they are, and make a decision. Not to approve of every choice they make. Not to pretend the patterns aren't there. Not to smile and nod while quietly falling apart. But to genuinely, deeply, philosophically accept that this person is on their own journey. Moving at their own pace. Learning their own lessons. On their own timeline, which may look nothing like the timeline you would have chosen for them. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Much of the suffering that fixers experience is not caused by what the other person is doing. It is caused by the gap between what the other person is doing and what the fixer believes they should be doing. Close that gap, not by changing the person, but by releasing the should, and a remarkable amount of suffering simply dissolves. This is not giving up on someone. This is giving them the most generous gift one human being can offer another. The gift of being loved exactly as they are, not as a project, not as a potential, not as a future version of themselves that exists only in your imagination. As themselves. Right now. Today. Shift 3, move from boundaries as walls to boundaries as bridges. Most people misunderstand what a boundary is. They think a boundary is a wall. A rejection. A withdrawal of love or care or availability. It is not. A boundary is a statement of truth. It is you saying, clearly, honestly, without aggression or apology, this is what I can offer. This is what I cannot. This is where I end and where you begin. And paradoxically, counterintuitively, boundaries make genuine relationship possible in a way that boundaryless rescuing never can. Because when there are no boundaries, when you give everything, always, without limit, what exists between you and the other person is not a relationship. It is a dynamic. A pattern. A transaction. And both of you know it, even if neither of you has named it. But when you establish honest limits, when you show up as a full person with real edges and genuine needs, something shifts. The other person can no longer relate to a bottomless resource. They must relate to an actual human being. And that friction, that realness, that honest collision of two whole people, is where genuine intimacy actually lives. A woman named Diane once told her closest friend something that changed both of their lives. She said, "I love you completely. And I can no longer be available for these conversations after 10 p.m. Not because I don't care, but because I do. And I need to care for myself well enough to still be here for you tomorrow." Her friend was initially hurt. 3 months later, she told Diane it was the most loving thing anyone had ever said to her. Because it was honest. Because it was real. Because it treated her as someone capable of handling truth, rather than someone so fragile that only endless, boundaryless availability could keep her afloat. Boundaries are not walls. They are the architecture of real love. Shift 4, move from their story to yours. This is perhaps the most important shift of all. Because here is what fixing does to the fixer over time, slowly, quietly, without announcement. It makes someone else's story the center of your life. Their drama becomes your drama. Their crisis becomes your crisis. Their lack of progress becomes your failure. Their choices you had no part in making and no power to undo, become the weather system that determines the climate of your entire inner world. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, your story gets lost. Your dreams sit in a drawer. Your healing gets postponed. Your own becoming, the person you were put here to grow into, waits patiently, year after year, for you to finish managing everyone else's life long enough to return to your own. Today is the day you return. Not by abandoning the people you love, but by remembering, with conviction, with urgency, with the kind of clarity that only comes when you have been away from something long enough to feel its absence. That you have a story too. A life that is not a footnote in someone else's journey. A becoming that belongs entirely to you. Go back to it. The river and the rock. There is a river that runs through a valley I once read about, wide, clear, impossibly patient. Over centuries, this river encountered a massive rock directly in its path. The rock was enormous. Immovable. By any reasonable measure, an obstacle that should have stopped the river entirely. The river did not try to move the rock. It did not crash against it in frustration. Did not waste its current battering something that would not budge. Did not exhaust itself in the futile project of forcing the rock to be somewhere other than where it was. The river simply moved around it. Flowed past it. Found another way. And in doing so, carved something over centuries that the rock never expected and could not prevent. A canyon of breathtaking beauty. Shaped, in part, by the very obstacle that was supposed to stop it. The people in your life who will not change, who cannot be fixed, who are not ready, who resist every effort you make with a consistency that defies explanation. They are the rock. And you are the river. Stop battering the rock. Find your way around it. And trust that the path you carve, the life you build by flowing around what cannot be moved, will be more beautiful than anything you could have forced. The person on the other side of the fixing. I want to close with something personal. Something I want you to sit with quietly, honestly, without rushing past it. When the fixing stops, when you finally, genuinely, put down the tools and step back from the project, there will be a moment of extraordinary disorientation. Because so much of your identity has been organized around it. Who are you, if you are not the one who holds everyone together? What is your value, if you are not the most capable person in the room? What do you do, with the hours, the energy, the emotional bandwidth that was consumed for so long by someone else's story? This disorientation is real. Honor it. But do not let it pull you back into the fixing. Because on the other side of that disorientation, on the other side of the quiet, the strangeness, the unfamiliar feeling of having your energy back, is something you may not have felt in a very long time. Yourself. The version of you that existed before you took on the weight of everyone else's becoming. The version that had dreams not yet deferred. Interests not yet abandoned. A sense of peace not yet conditional on whether the people around you were okay. That version of you is not gone. She has just been waiting. Patiently. Faithfully. Without judgment. For you to remember that you were never meant to fix the world. You were meant to inhabit it. Fully. Freely. As yourself. Go do that. The Stoic Truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, in the quiet of his private journals, in the honest hours before the empire made its demands of him. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, and do so with all your heart. Not, fix the people. Not, change the people. Not, exhaust yourself trying to make the people into what you believe they should be. Love them. With all your heart. And then, with equal commitment, love yourself. With boundaries that are honest. With energy that is protected. With a story that is yours. With a life that is not a waiting room for everyone else to get better before you begin living. You are not a mechanic. You are not a rescue service. You are not the designated fixer of everyone fate has placed in your orbit. You are a human being, with your own wounds still healing, your own wisdom still growing, your own life still unfolding in ways you cannot yet fully see. Live it. Protect it. And love the people in it, not by trying to change them, but by being so fully, so honestly, so unapologetically yourself, that your wholeness becomes an invitation. Not a demand. Not a project. An invitation. To rise. To grow. To become, on their own terms, in their own time, through their own struggle. That is the most powerful thing you can offer anyone. Not your fixing. This is what we do here. Every single episode. We do not come to the Stoic path for surface-level inspiration. We do not come for easy answers or comfortable conversations. We come because we are serious, genuinely, deeply serious, about understanding ourselves. About living with intention. About building the kind of inner life that does not depend on fixing the world around us to feel okay. If that is you, and I believe it is, then subscribe to the Stoic Path right now. Hit that button. Turn on your notifications. Because this community is growing, and it is filled with people exactly like you. People who are done with shallow. People who are ready for real.